Hello, 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 hello. I am so excited. Hey, Dr. Gail, for joining me. Hello, son Tamazier, for joining me. Hello, Valdez. Thanks so much for joining me. We are live on the Dr. Kiki Ramsey Show. And y'all, I really have an amazing topic today because as I've been thinking about my life and where I sit in life, it is all about unbalance, right? But not unbalanced in the way that you're thinking about it, unbalanced in the way that I'm going to share with you on the show today. And so if you're joining me live on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, please drop your name in the chat. And if you're on over here on Instagram, go ahead and drop me your name and let me know where you are tuning in from. I can't wait to get into the show today, right after this. I love my show intro. Okay, so listen. Whoo, as I was, have been really thinking about my life, where I sit in my career and all of the things that I do, I've really been thinking about the unbalancedness of my entire life. But yet and still, I always have people who will say to me, how do you do it all? I don't understand how you do it all. And when I say all, let me explain all to you. Hey, Lamar, thanks so much for joining me. Thank you, Raja. I think that's your name on IG. But so what I mean is, first of all, I have three kids, right? I have an adult son who was joining me on Instagram, IG. Tamaze, shout out to him. He just had a birthday past. And I have two little ones, Mackenzie, who is 5, soon to be 6, and Trey, who is 4. And so mom life already, right? Mom life, I got you covered from the oldest to the smallest. Then I also have 2 businesses. Kiki Ramsey International, which is my business where I do all of my speaking engagements and speak all over the world on happiness and diversity, equity, and inclusion and resilience. I also have the Positive Psychology Coaching and Diversity Institute, aka PCADI. And that is my company where we have over 30 coaches who work for the organization, and we're going out there doing amazing work around diversity coaching and leadership development in companies across the US. And then I also have an amazing husband who I've been married to for almost 20 years, and I'm going to keep it that way. And then lastly, I also teach at Life University in Atlanta, Georgia, in the Masters of Positive Psychology coaching program. Need I say more? I'm just saying. Need I say more? And they always say, there's a saying that goes, if you need something done, give it to a busy person, right? That's me. That is absolutely me, a busy person. But I have been analyzing the comment that I often get, which is, I don't see how you do it all. Like, you are amazing. You do so many things. Like you show up and you're wearing so many hats. And I think it's because I've learned how to thrive and be happy in the unbalanced, right? And so I started doing research on this topic. And what's interesting is that most of my clients, especially my coaching clients, they have the same issue. Either they have learned how to thrive in the unbalance and to find joy and happiness, or they're trying to figure it out. And there's something about learning how to be happy in this place. And that's what I really want to talk about on today's show. So I join you to join me in this conversation. If you have comments, drop them in the chat. If you're on IG, drop them in the chat as well. And we can actually discuss your thoughts around this topic as well. So, first of all, let's talk about balance. What is balance? Balance is an even distribution of weight, enabling something or somebody to remain upright. So, I'm going to say it again, it's an even distribution of weight. So, it's also a condition in which elements are equal, in which all elements are equal. So, let me just say this, that don't exist. Baby, balance based on its definition does not exist. And you know, what's interesting is because we always talk about work-life balance, work-life balance. Well, today we're going to talk about the work-life unbalance. All right. Like, because I never knew things to be super, to be evenly distributed throughout my life. Right. Let me give you an example. A couple years ago, a lot of I went on a journey and I got my PhD. And for me, that was a lifelong goal of mine, which was to become a psychologist. Now I'm a positive psychologist, which means I study resilience and happiness and thriving. And so I went on this journey to get the PhD, but at the same time, when I started my journey for a PhD, my daughter Mackenzie was 1 year old. Let me say it again. One. So here's the thing. A lot of times we try to wait to situations are perfect in order to start. And it just life does not work that way. You cannot wait for a perfect condition to start your life. It just does not work. And so I had been toying with going back to school for a whole bunch of years. So did my husband Jamil, right? We toyed with going back, to school together. And then one day he came home and he was like, "Yeah, decided to go back to school and get my PhD, and you probably want to figure out what you want to do because I know you and you don't want to regret not going." That's a challenge. My husband is awesome, right? He knows how to get me going. So I did just that. I figured it out and enrolled in school. But here's the thing, at that same time, Mackenzie was one. Tamazia was already out of the house because he's an adult by now, right? And so he was already gone. But I later asked myself, why couldn't you have gone back to school when you were an empty nester for almost what, like 6 years? I mean, my son was out of the house for 6 whole years where we were just empty nesting, trying to figure out life and trying to figure out what we trying to do. Me and him could have easily went back to school, but no, we wait until we go on this long in vitro journey to have Mackenzie to go ahead and go back to school. So here I am. Here we are. Here we are. We're both back in school getting our PhDs at the same time. At the same time. The whole same time. and so as the first year progresses, we're both trying to find our footing with school and working, because now at this time we still haven't stopped working. I didn't have two businesses at the time, though. I had one business when I started school. So we both were working and we were going to school at the same time, and we had a 1 year old. Next thing you know, I'm not feeling so hot, right? Like I'm a pretty healthy person. I know me. And when something's wrong, something is wrong. So I wasn't feeling so hot. So I was like, something is not right. Well, come to find out, I was pregnant with Walter Jamil Ramsey III, AKA Trey. So let me paint this picture for you. I just started school about a year into the whole program. And I find out that I'm pregnant, but I got a 1 year old as well. And I'm running a business. And so is my husband in school and working full time. Child, bye. Bye. Just bye. Because here's the thing. Here's the thing. That was like the most unbalanced I have ever been in my life up until that time. At least I feel like, right? And I had to think about how I got through that time in my life. And I'm going to actually share that with you and give you some steps on if you're feeling super, unbalanced, how to actually find joy and happiness in the unbalance, right? So here I am, here we are, school, about to have another baby and everything like that. So the question was asked of me, are you going to actually stop school? Are you going to quit? And I realized that I try not to make decisions without all of the information. And what do I mean by that, right? I didn't know how school was going to affect my parenting. I knew it was going to make it more difficult, but I didn't know that I couldn't do it, right? I couldn't say for certain that I couldn't go to school and have a 1 year old and have another baby at the same time and still run my business. I couldn't say that. So because I couldn't definitively say that, I try not to make decisions prior to having all of the information. I would rather go through the situation and then get to a place and say, you know what? This is a little too much for me, and I'm deciding not to move forward, or I'm deciding to pivot, or whatever it is. And so I decided to move forward, and I found that I could manage. I found that I could find what I love and what I call harmony between some of the things and all of the things that were important to me and all of the goals that were important to me at the time in my life. And that's what I want to teach you. Right, it's to find harmony. So I was able to find this harmony between these things. It wasn't balanced because some days I was at the time I used to go to WeWork every single weekend. Some days I would be at WeWork every single weekend from about 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. And what does that mean? That means I'm not seeing my children or my husband. Did you hear me? I'm literally locked in and focused because I had a goal of getting done and I didn't see my children or my husband. Now, here's the thing. Did that make me sad? Yes, it absolutely did make me sad. But I also knew what I was doing it for. I was doing it so that I could get done and get this PhD and then start really being able to use what I've learned in school to help other people grow, right? My kids were young at the time. They ain't gonna ever remember that. I remember, but they not, right? Like they're not gonna remember the time that I had to stay and we worked all night working on my dissertation. They're not gonna remember it. So I figured out a way to manage it all in the midst of it still being hard, right? In the midst of it still being hard. And that's one of the things that we have to remember is that our life ebbs and flow, right? It ebbs and flow, right? So at this point in my life, right? I'm not in school anymore, so I don't have to spend all that time on school. I have this philosophy that I live life by, right? When things get hard, and they do, and so I want to share this with you. When things get hard, and they will, right? I always say I can do hard things. I can do anything for a small period of time, right? I can do hard things for a small period of time, right? So I knew that for me, my dissertation and me getting that done was going to be a period of time. Like there was a beginning and an end to this thing. And I knew that. And so that's what I was working towards, the end, because I knew that there was an end. The end was graduation. The end was Dr. Kiki Ramsey. That was the end for me. And so for you, there may be a season that you're going through that might be difficult, right? You have to figure out like what's the end, and if you don't see an end in sight, you got to still manage through and think about what you want the other side of this to look like, because there can be another side to this. So I want to just share with you a couple things that I did and a couple things that I want you to do when you are learning to embrace the unbalanced life. And what this means is really understanding that balance will never be, found. You can never find an equilibrium between all the things that you value in your life at any given one point. You just can't. It just does not exist. But you can find harmony. in those things. So one of the things that you need to do, the first thing is you need to embrace the fact that true balance, the way that we think of it in society, does not exist. Go ahead and embrace it. Because here's the thing, here's what I found, especially even in my research with the women who I coach and everything, is if you keep striving for something that doesn't exist, it only makes you more frustrated, right? It's like, I need work-life balance. I need, balance and balance. And yes, we got to play on words right now. I understand that, right? But I want you to be realistic about what that actually means in your life, right? What it means. Maybe you say, I want to find harmony, right? I want to be able to manage this, my entire life. And that those things can happen. Finding harmony can happen, but true balance where all things are equal cannot happen. And we have to embrace that so that we have true goals to go after, right? That we have really true goals. So the second thing is you need to be intentional. So here's the thing. This is, to me, intentionality is the foundation of thriving and finding joy and happiness in the unbalance, right? Is intentionality. I wake up every day and I set my intentions on how I really want the day to play out. Now, here's the thing. A lot of us get real funny about, like, when people say, I set my intention and I do this and I do that. It ain't spooky. Like, it's not. It's just, I literally am intentional about the things I place my time on. Do I get still stressed out and upset? Yes, I do. Because I'm human, and you probably will as well, until you always remember to reset with intentionality, right? You got to reset with that. And so this week has been a real, a bit difficult for me because, number one, grades, the end of the quarter for my students is has come. We have reached the end of the quarter, and that means I'm grading finals, I'm grading past due assignments, I'm doing all these things, right? And so, and I want to make sure that my students get their grades in on time and get what they deserve and everything like that. So that is one thing that I'm doing. But another thing I'm doing is I'm prepping for my next 2 classes that I'm teaching this next quarter. And that in itself is a whole lot. In addition to, we just started a couple new contracts with some amazing clients, client organizations through PCADI. And I have, a couple of speaking engagements that I just came from and that I'm going through in Kiki Ramsey International. So all of those things have made me a little nutty this week, like seriously. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, how am I going to manage? So I had to reset my intentions. And I have to do this daily because things change, right? What we place our focus on in the moment of our lives may change, right? Once I get past all this grading and prepping for the next quarter of school, I can then focus my time on more of, the business activities and stuff like that. But in the meantime, I'm grateful because I have an amazing team. I have an amazing team at home with my husband, and we partner together in everything that we do, right? But I first have to set my intention. And what that looks like for me is I get up at 5 o'clock every morning, I pray, and I really will get together the 3 most important things that I need to do for that day. Now, let me just tell you this. Is my list longer than 3 things? Absolutely. Baby, you don't want to see my list. I'm just going to tell you, you don't want to trade places with me when it comes to the list, because I will beat you every single time when it comes to the list. But what I do is I look at the list and I'm like, you know what? I got a whole bunch of stuff on this list to do, but what is really important that I get done today, right? Today. and I start those things and I make it my business to get those three things done. Another question is, Kiki, do you fall short of getting those three things done sometimes? Yep, because guess what? I'm human. I'm absolutely human. And I'm tired sometimes and all those things. But I really try to get those three things done. And if I can do that, if I can, number one, embrace that, hey, guess what? I'm not perfect. This balance thing don't really exist. I'm going to do the best that I can. And I set my intention, then I am doing good. And then what's left? The last thing that's left is that I enjoy the journey, is that I show up every single day and enjoy the journey that I'm on. Because here's the thing, when it comes to life, you get to. You get to wake up every single morning, right? It is a blessing that you are even listening to the sound of my voice right now, right? Because we all know that tomorrow is not promised to any of us, right? And so I chose this life. Well, let me tell you why I chose this life, because the actions that I have um, done and created throughout my life has gotten me to this very point in my life. And I'm going to say the same to you. The actions that you have created, the things that you've done in your life have gotten you to this very point that you're sitting in right now. So I chose this. Now, let me just say this. Yes, there are circumstances in our lives that we didn't choose, and that we are now sitting in, and to this very day. I understand that, right? But let me just say this to you: how you choose to move forward is also a choice. You can also be intentional about the way you move forward, even if your circumstances right now are not what you want them to be. I don't want to be this busy. I don't. But I also at the same time love it. So I embrace the both and, right? I don't want to be this busy, but I also love it, right? Both and. I don't want this, and I also have this though, right? So I wanted you to kind of get, my thought processes into really how do you find joy and happiness in the imbalance? Because as we sit in these spaces in our life, in these seasons, we all have different seasons, right? There's spring, summer, winter, fall seasons in our life as well. As we sit in these seasons, what I found is that there can be difficulty in every single season, right? Like there can be difficulty, but there also can be joy in every single season. And if you only wait for the joy, but don't embrace the difficulty in your life, then you missing out on so much potential happiness that you could have in life. And let me just say, life is all about perspective. What you go through in your life is all about how you perceive it to be, right? I could have perceived, this whole week that's been difficult as just one of the worst weeks of my life because I've been so busy and inundated with emails and all that kind of stuff. So that was a choice. I could have perceived it that way. But instead, I perceived it to be like, oh my God, we have so many opportunities to work with some amazing client companies at Caddy. And I have so many opportunities to work with so many amazing men and women in my coaching practice in Happy Women Lead Academy. Like I chose to see it that way versus only looking at the negative. And that is the beauty of thriving and finding joy in the unbalanced life. That is the beauty of it all, is when you can wake up every single day and understand that there's opportunity for happiness and joy, even in pain. That is the beauty. That's the beauty. So I hope that this resonated with you. I'm going to be talking a lot about this subject because I feel like it is something that we all have to learn how to manage in our lives. And I'm going to be transparent about it because, baby, it's not always easy, but it can be easy, right? There are times in our life where things are just coming together, and those are the things, and those are the times that I love in life. And so I hope that you'll join, will join me on this journey of thriving through an unbalanced life as we talk about this real life stuff that we go through as human beings, and how do we find that true joy and that true happiness in our life. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode of the Dr. Kiki Ramsey Show. You can absolutely find the Dr. Kiki Ramsey Show on all of your podcast channels on Amazon, Spotify, Apple. And I appreciate all of you who've gone on and downloaded all the, recent episodes and the past episodes of the Dr. Kiki Ramsey Show. We are doing amazing on this podcast. I love going on and seeing the numbers and just seeing how many of you who are consuming the shows and stuff like that. And so you can always catch them live here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, but you can always go and listen to them on whatever podcast channel you prefer. And then I'll say this lastly: if you are a woman who is a professional, who's much like me, much like what I talked about today, who wants to really thrive in living an unbalanced life, we go through all of these questions and all of these topics in detail in the Happy Women Lead Academy community. So I invite you to go on over to happywomenlead.com and join us. You can get a free trial membership into the program, but it is beautiful. We're coaching every single month. We're digging into real topics that matter most to us as women. So I invite you to join me over there. All right, now, until next time, see you and go out and be sure to create your own happiness, because happiness is a choice. Take care.